Hello, one and all, and welcome to another week here at the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. It's a Monday, which means it's time to, cast off the relaxation and all of that of Saturday and Sunday. But Mondays can be fantastic too, thanks to Francesca Fiorentini. Let's go, Francesca.
What up, John? Sup, Dragon
I like
Squad?
that sweater.
Thank you.
That's cool. It goes well with your background color too. Glad to have you here.
Good to be here.
News continuing to be as chaotic and weird and unnecessarily bizarre as it is, but very glad to have you here as we launch into another week of what can possibly happen. We talked a little bit about some of the Monday morning news on the pre-show, which everyone should tune into, like about 50 to 60 minutes before the show. That's as accurate as I can be. But for instance, Francesca, we mentioned that Biden did the sort of thing a president can do. He just signed a thing, and now the transgender military ban is gone.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
I'd like to see that.
No, yeah, but of course that's divisive according to the media, and he wants unity, but this is so divisive. I was calling it like moving into a crime scene and being called divisive for mopping up the blood. And being like, no, it's not divisive at all. I'm literally just cleaning up this crime scene.
It's like, it's super bloody in here. Come on, can we do something about this? Yes, and America is unfortunately, and quite literally, very bloody up in here. So hopefully, this is the sort of, this is what I want. I want at least this every day. And he can do it, he's the president. He can deliver it. They got the Senate, they got the House. They can eliminate the filibuster. They can do it. Let's start having those conversations.
Yes.
But anyway, thank you to everybody, regardless of where you're watching, for watching the show. Appreciate that. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. And as we go along through this hour of news, we'll be reading your comments, your tweets, your chats, and all of that. A couple of quick little network updates before we launch into things. One is, that we're on Instagram at The Damage Report. You can definitely check that. Thank you to everybody who pushed us past 10,000 followers over the past few days. That's pretty awesome. We have a lot of fun on there, sharing dog photos. And it's mostly a lot of dog photos, which is the best part of the internet, and we want to be a part of it. But also, did you know that we're on TikTok? You should, we've said it a bunch, but anyway, we're on TikTok, and probably by the time I'm filming this, we're gonna move past the 10,000. So TikTok apparently kind of a big deal. So go on the TikTok, search for, go on the TikTok, I'm 50. Anyway, go on TikTok and search The Damage Report, and I'm there wearing that suit, but doing TikTok dances. So you can definitely enjoy that. I always cross my arms on TikTok. That's my thing. It's probably not going to catch on. But anyway, thank you for following us there as well. Oh, also, did you know, by the way, we've got a new mug. People have been requesting Dragon Squad mugs, and we've got them. Look at that. Whether you get the kind I hold, the same kind, but with her holding it, both are good kinds.
Her? Oh, suddenly I'm a her. Okay. Suddenly that thing. Yeah, you're gonna have that one or me. Thanks.
I'm not starting the week well, admittedly. I'm so happy to have you here, but I'm not demonstrating it.
You're doing great.
Oh God, make that into a commercial. Okay. I guess we're gonna talk about news. I don't see how, but anyway, we're gonna try. So let's start off on a bit of a down note. Many people have died over the past year needlessly before their time. Over the weekend, we had another with Larry King, the legendary broadcaster, one of the biggest names in media and interviewing of the last 50 years, 100 years, did pass away at the age of 87. I want to give you just a few updates in case, we have a lot of younger audience members who may not be that familiar with him. He hosted Larry King Live on CNN for over 25 years, interviewing presidential candidates, celebrities, athletes, movie stars, and everyday people. He retired in 2010 after taping more than 6,000 episodes of the show. But by retired, it means he left that show. He kept broadcasting up until the middle of December, actually. A statement was put out by Aura Media, which produced Larry King Now, which was the final iteration of his show, saying, for 63 years and across the platforms of radio, television, and digital media, Larry's many thousands of interviews, awards, and global acclaim stand as a testament to his unique and lasting talent as a broadcaster. They didn't put out any kind of cause of death. But he was hospitalized in late December with COVID-19, and so it's not difficult to imagine that might have been a factor. Certainly didn't help. So I'll have a little bit more details for him. But Francesca, I know we don't talk a lot about deaths necessarily, but he was a pretty big one in media, which we're sort of part of. So I figured we should definitely mention it.
Absolutely. I mean, to be broadcasting for that long and then to keep going, I think that obviously if you are at CNN, 25 years at CNN is enough. Like you probably want your own thing after that long. But Larry King was sort of, I mean, up there with obviously like the great interviewers and, but a different style. I can't, Charlie Rose, may he be canceled in peace. But and like, Barbara Walters and like someone who made you feel incredibly comfortable. Like when I was interviewed by Larry King, no, but when he had a familiarity about him, he was warm, he really wanted to. It was very empathetic, I think, and that's why people liked him. And then he had that like buttery radio voice, that is
baritone.
So the baritone Larry King voice. And yeah, I think that what COVID-19 is doing also is cutting lives short who that didn't need to be, even though someone is old, doesn't mean they didn't have like another 10 to 20, and especially people who are working at, in their late 80s. And that I think is a huge loss. We've been somehow hardened to the idea that at-risk groups are more expendable, and they're not. And these are elderly folks who have had so much more life to give. So anyway, gotta honor them and remember them for all that they did.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like, I think it was the governor of Texas early on there saying, your grandparents have had a good long life, but if I had to sacrifice mine, I would. This is what they're talking about, basically.
Yeah.
Creating a situation where there's so much COVID out there that inevitably Larry King can get it. And again, we don't know that he died from it, but he had it, he was 87 and he died. So I'm not a mathematician, but I can solve certain equations. But anyway, in addition, he did have health problems over the years, multiple things that would lead him to be higher at risk, including his age. He suffered several heart attacks. In 1987, he underwent quintuple bypass surgery, inspiring him to establish the Larry King Cardiac Foundation to provide assistance to those without insurance. More recently, in 2017, he was diagnosed with lung cancer and underwent surgery to treat it. He also, by the way, last year lost 2 of his adult children within weeks of each other. His son Andy suffered a heart attack. His daughter Chaya died after being diagnosed with lung cancer as well. So, obviously a very sad last year in addition to all of the obvious ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had a very interesting place in media, being effectively just an interviewer. Like he just wanted to learn from as many people as possible. He apparently said quite often, "I've never learned anything while I was talking. I just love what I do. I love asking questions. I love doing the interviews." Yeah, and I was lucky enough, over the last few years, I was on his show a number of times. So, 1 out of every 10,000 of those interviews was with me, and I had a great experience with him. And he never really pushed anything on me. He just brought me on he wanted to know what progressives thought about the news. Nice. And yes, sometimes he put me on with absolute troglodytes from the right. But he did have me on, and not a lot of people in the media have left us on. So that is good to see. And anyway, quite a career, sort of speaks for itself, and sad to see him go.
Yeah. Also, I just want to tell everyone to watch the clip where he interviews Jerry Seinfeld when Seinfeld ends. It is the funniest piece of interview pretty much ever, John. You have to see it because Larry goes in and clearly hasn't been super briefed on it, and how it ended, and maybe not a Seinfeld fan, which of course for Jerry Seinfeld, who is so up his own ass, is like, that's like a huge no. Like Jerry is like, you don't know who I am, I'm king, and especially then. And Seinfeld was not canceled, but Larry's like, so was the show canceled or did he? And like,
how does he not know?
And Jerry's like
Seinfeld.
But what's funnier than Larry getting it wrong is Seinfeld getting so upset and so like flabbergasted that this person wouldn't roll out the red carpet and not know, which is just mwah when someone is, just needs to be taken down a peg was very fun.
Down a peg. Yeah, it's like, dude, I still really like Seinfeld, the show. It was very good. It is though, it's a 90s sitcom about nothing. And he was good, he was funny, but also I think Larry David deserves quite a bit of the credit for that. If somebody is gonna be full of themselves over it, it's Larry David and apparently Steve Bannon, who was apparently involved in it, but whatever. Okay. He also, and as people are pointing out in the chat, he took Dave Rubin down a peg. Have you seen the video where he's being interviewed by Dave Rubin? And he takes a personal call for 4 minutes live on air during the interview.
Amazing.
It's they were on the same network at one point. When Dave Rubin was popping around before he decided he was gonna be, an alt-righter or whatever.
Sure.
He just takes the phone call.
I love it.
Hilarious.
Thank you. Rest in peace.
Thank you. You did a great service to humanity. By the way, I can see in the chat that people are using some of our new emojis, including there is Francesca appears as if she's on one of the Jesus candles. And my dog Hilo is the newest emoji as of today, available on YouTube. You can get my dog. It basically looks like just 2 giant dog ears. That's pretty much the whole thing. And there's another version of Hilo available on Twitch. So depending on which platform you're at, collect all of the Hilos. But anyway, with that, why don't we move on to some important news also having to do with the pandemic. Dr. Fauci has continued on from the Trump administration to the Biden administration. Dr. Birx, not so much. And they were the 2 sort of front-facing scientific members of the Trump team until Scott Atlas, the guy who doesn't understand disease but thinks it's great for a lot of people to get it, took their spots kind of. Well, Fauci came out of it with a great reputation. Dr. Birx apparently a little bit less so. And so she did an interview with Face the Nation addressing some of those concerns, giving a little bit of information about what it was like behind the scenes with the Trump administration, dealing with the pandemic. And we're gonna evaluate a few of her answers. But the first being, trying to get an idea of, from the inside, how serious did Trump actually take this thing?
Do you think the president was just distracted by the political implications in the campaign?
I always wonder that. And I mean, the worst possible time you can have a pandemic is in a presidential election year. I think the White House personnel were very focused on this pandemic in March and April. I think once the country began to open and it was clear to me that they weren't going to follow my really gating criteria that I had worked hard on.
How to open restaurants, how to let people dine indoors.
I combined all of that together for these great gating criteria. So in calculating everything with the slow reopening, I didn't think anyone could get to phase 3 until August. And you can see in the states that followed.
Okay, so how serious did they take it? Look, it's kind of a stupid question to ask because we know how serious they took it, not at all. But she says that in March and April, they took it pretty seriously. I mean, I remember after 9 days, he said we're gonna be reopening on Easter because it's gonna be gone by then.
Yeah, what point? When?
April was not a month where they closed it out strong and then they lost some steam in May. She's giving some insider access, which can be useful for the historical record. But even now, in an interview, which I think a lot of people are seeing as an attempt to sort of clean her reputation, that's sort of carrying water for the Trump administration to pretend that they gave a damn for even 2 months.
Yeah. Oh man, Deborah Birx is a very conflicted and interesting character in all of this, because she was pretty much the only one who could get through to Trump because he liked her scarves and he thought she was very elegant. Literally, that's what he said. Mm-hmm. So he was mad because I believe the CDC had gone over his head to announced that it was, the pandemic was far more serious. And so then he shut his ears to all the science because he was worried about the stock market like everyone was who doesn't have a soul. And then Deborah Birx was the only one to get through to him. And I think she had a different role to play because whereas Fauci was demonized, it was seen like Deborah was the Trump whisperer. And I think she understood that too. So I'm not gonna say that she was, I think sort of colluding or condoning his lack of response, because I think she was also put in a horrible position, but I also think she was not brave. I think the word for her was definitely not brave. I think the word for Fauci, brave. Word for Deborah Birx, more of a go along than brave. And I think this moment required one to be more brave than a go along. Anyway, we can continue.
Yeah, we will, and we have more of her. Yeah, I think, look, there is an alternate world where Fauci could have done more. I don't know that I believe it would have mattered, aside from possibly getting him fired earlier, or getting fired, I should say.
Right.
I don't know, it's possible he could have done more, and I am trying to be fair to how we evaluate Fauci versus how we evaluate Birx, but I feel like there are some pretty big differences that are gonna be hard for Birx to get past. But anyway, she is offering us that behind the scenes information. So let's get a little bit more here. Were there COVID deniers in the White House? Another one of those kind of obvious questions, but here's the response.
Are COVID deniers in the White House?
There are people in the White House, and I think people around this country, because I've had the privilege to meet them and listen to them and hear them, because I wanted to hear what people were saying. There were people who definitely believed that this was a hoax.
Why?
I think because the information was confusing at the beginning. I think because we didn't talk about the spectrum of disease, because everyone interpreted on what they knew. And so they saw people get COVID and be fine.
Okay, so Francesca, the issue that I have with that is it still feels like it is trying to be too nice to these people to say, yes, the White House, which has access to more information than literally any other house in the world, they were like, the information was confusing for them, so they were like trying to work through it. No, they were misinforming the public about it. They were the ones going on Fox News to talk about how it's just gonna be like the flu and it's not a big deal and it's China's fault and Kung Flu-y and all that. Like, they weren't just passive receptacles for a maelstrom of confusing facts. That was the American public in no small part because the White House was lying to them.
No, exactly.
They were the purveyors of misinformation from the very beginning.
Absolutely. I think the follow-up is, who are you talking about? The question was people inside of the administration. So I assume she's talking about the administration. And again, the amount of leeway and the amount that she is giving to the administration for people were just, wrongly informed, or they were interpreting their own set of data, what they had read, and they saw people, and it's like, no. You're the White House. You are in the executive branch. Like, you don't get to do that. Like, you don't get to just interpret the tea leaves like the rest of America. You have to put out the information, like you're saying. And I don't want to be partisan about it, but it really feels like she's got a soft spot for the administration. Like, it's clear. It's to me that, like, if you stick with that administration, if you do not resign in disgust, at that point, it's because you kind of like them. Like, you want them to win. Maybe you voted for Trump. I'm getting a lot of Karen vibes. I'm just gonna say it. Like, that's sort of what it feels like. And I don't think everything has to be partisan. In fact, I think it should not be partisan. But like, given that reality, that the Republicans made reality have a partisan bent, meaning if you believe that it's real, you're suddenly a Democrat, then I would say Birx was very much partisan in the Republican sense.
Yeah. Look, I can't confirm or deny her Karenhood. I have no idea. I don't know what's in her heart or in her voting history. But we can evaluate her responses and what she did. And I can try to be understanding about, it's entirely possible that Trump would have reacted very differently to her doing the exact same thing that Fauci might. That's possible.
Yeah.
The guy who believes that her value is based on the scarves that she wears and how elegant she looks might be ready to cast her aside at a moment's notice. That seems like that might be true. But hundreds of thousands of lives are on the line. So again, everybody who stayed, we have to evaluate what was their rationale for staying, and much more importantly, what was the effect of them staying. But we're gonna get a little bit more of that as we roll towards sort of the low light of their interactions. But first, let's start with this.
How did the
I'm excited to get to it too. In Dr. Birx's interview with Face the Nation, a couple of questions came up specifically about Donald Trump and his involvement in the pandemic. So first of all, the fact that, remember, he got COVID. How did that happen?
But how did the task force allow the president, who calls himself a germaphobe, to get COVID himself? How did that happen?
There were only 2 people who regularly wore a mask in the White House. Myself and Tyler Ann McGuffrey, the support person that I had from HHS.
So the staff around the president was not wearing a mask. He's the commander-in-chief. This is a national security risk.
I mean, that's sort of like, yeah. Now, there were follow-up questions about, did you make it clear that they should need to be wearing masks? And I will say, as critical as I'm being over in this segment, everybody knows that you had to wear a mask. Like everybody a month in knew that you had to wear a mask, and the people who didn't made a political choice. Their identity became wrapped up in not wearing a mask. And so I don't think that if Birx had gone up to Stephen Miller and said, hey dude, it would be better and more responsible for you to wear a mask, I don't think he would have. But yeah, she's confirming it is as bad as it looked from the outside. It wasn't that Trump refused to wear a mask in public because he thought it would make him weak, but behind the scenes, he was a germaphobe, so he wore it. Apparently, no, all of them either genuinely believe that masks are a Bill Gates conspiracy to infect your blood with demon semen, or like they were just that selfish and it was their political identity.
Oh my God. I want that demon semen because then like maybe I could get, child support, live off of that. Sorry, that was gross.
The
John
palace
said it
in
first.
hell waiting for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was the Trump's favorite doctor that he retweeted or whatever was the one who used to talk about demon semen. Anyway, okay, so in terms of, we get a little bit more information from behind the scenes. You appreciate in her perspective?
I guess.
Some people felt you became.
It's a thankless, it really is a thankless position that she was put in. And I think most people probably would have resigned at some point for their own sake to sort of like save face. And it would have, I think, told the country that it would have said a lot to this country, because I think that then you don't have pretty much any scientist or any physician, anyone who is qualified supporting the administration. And instead, I think what happened is that by her remaining, she ended up validating where he was coming from. And I think that that's, again, I don't envy that position. I think, because you imagine you're there, you're like, well, okay, he listens to me because I am a blonde woman with nice scarves, but I also sort of know what I'm talking about. How do I balance this? What do? I wanna help people. I wanna actually get information out. But I think, and I know we're gonna talk about this, as soon as you see that is falling on deaf ears, then maybe you should move along.
Well, what if there was a moment that made very clear that he didn't know nothing, he wasn't gonna learn anything, he didn't give a damn about anything? It turns out there was a moment like that. And so she was, of course, asked in this interview about the drinking bleach moment.
Some people felt you became an apologist for President Trump. They look at that moment in the briefing room.
Then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning?
You were sitting there and he looked at you and he asked about ultraviolet light and heat.
See?
And
that?
And you start talking about fevers. You didn't say
this is no.
Deborah, have you ever heard of that? The heat and the light relative to certain viruses, yes, but relative to this virus?
That is a treatment. He was not speaking to me. This is what, when you talked about, was I prepared for that? No, I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't even know what to do in that moment.
Sometimes people say, well, Tony Fauci, when that happened to him, he would sort of gently come back up to the podium and set the record straight.
Well, he was given the opportunity to do that.
And you don't feel you were given the opportunity to respond?
Not until he turned to me and said, could this be a treatment? And I said, not a treatment.
Okay, so there's more to that, and she says that originally he was talking to someone else sitting next to her, but he asked her a question very specifically about vis-a-vis in regard to the disinfectant, I know. If you had stood up and said, well, that's crazy, he would have fired you. But this was an official COVID press conference where he was telling people, maybe we put the light inside. And that was actually happening as the pandemic was warming up. So I would want people to think that I wasn't as involved as I obviously was too, but we remember what happened.
No, I mean, exactly. And also people died because they injected and tried to ingest bleach, ingested at least. It had consequences. Not correcting that record, as stupid of an idea as it was to attempt to drink bleach to get rid of coronavirus, she didn't correct the record. And Birx not standing up and saying, no, let me just clarify. I think that we're all, like, you can couch it. We're all looking at experimental treatments and the president, praise him, but he is wrong.
Yeah, I guess you can't just stand up and say, like, you dumbass. You can't say that. Yes, I get it, but you got to do something. It's crazy talk, and we focus on the bleach because it's the most insane. But how many weeks of hydroxychloroquine?
Oh my God!
How much conversation? How much time during the pandemic was wasted for that? And the back and forth and all of it. And the thing is, look, so that's all that I really want to show from the interview. It's not to say that she didn't do good things behind the scenes. Maybe she did. Maybe it is possible that she did. But I'm gonna remember some things like the bleach thing, and I'm also gonna remember back when, relatively early in March, the first 2 weeks of the lockdown, when she said of Trump, he's been so attentive to the scientific literature and the details and the data. I think his ability to analyze and integrate data that comes out of his long history in business has really been a real benefit during these discussions about medical issues. And so that's why he then went on an interview and said, I've had people tell me that I understand this better than anybody, better than a doctor. I should have been a doctor. Like, whether this is misinforming the public or causing Trump to think he's better suited to deal with this pandemic and doesn't need the experts than he actually was, that effect doesn't seem to have been positive either. And when you come out in the first few weeks of a pandemic that ends up killing nearly 500,000 people so far, and you say that he's got this great mind like a supercomputer, then maybe people should have been more critical of Trump early on. Maybe they should have demanded more, but they didn't because some people are misinforming us. And I'm not saying that she was in the top 5 or even the top 20 of misinformers, but she was part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, that's enough of Dr. Birx. We're gonna read a few comments from the audience and then move on to other news. Let's see. Tony Forrester with the first super chat today saying Vice News interviewed lone Trump supporter from New York and he was a reasonable guy, even said election was stolen by Trump campaign incompetence and carelessness. That's good, that one protester. But then why was he there? If he thought that it was just incompetence on the part of the campaign, why was he rallying to overthrow? I don't know, anyway. Let's see, Just Me says all emolument lawsuits thrown out by Supreme Court, what say you? Look, we might cover that tomorrow on the show. I'll just say, yeah, I don't, there's not gonna be any consequences. That's sort of my catchphrase at this point. Francesca, any thoughts about no emoluments going forward?
I mean, this is why you stack the courts as the Republicans have done. And yeah, the emoluments clause is like, let's commit an actual consequence into law, like what does happen? Let's have that triggered rather than have to like run it through the Supreme Court.
Yeah, maybe the emoluments thing is a little bit too vague. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe obviously it's too vague. Maybe we should very specifically say what future presidents can do and earn on. That seems like it could potentially be useful. Because I got news for you, Trump is the first one who just insanely benefited while in office, rather than the tradition of leaving office and then insanely benefiting. They're all gonna do that in the future. Like if they have a business, they're gonna keep working at it because they know they can get away with it. We've set that precedent.
Yeah, and we should be demanding that under a Biden administration. I just want to say, like, I don't care who you have to work with, just do that kind of stuff to Trump-proof this presidency and show that we're not partisan hacks either. Like, we think that Democrats should abide by this exact same rules, and I bet you Republicans will get behind it because I don't think any president should be profiting from their position, or their friends or family profiting or lobbying, et cetera, et cetera. So, like, no, let's enact it now while Republicans are obviously gonna be for it because it's Biden in office.
That's a great point. Yeah, I don't want Biden benefiting either with his own, like Biden branded aviator glasses or some sort of ad campaign for corn pops. I don't want him to make any money because it's a genuine thing against corruption. It's not just about Trump. He's the worst, but anyway. Okay, John Mad Dog Hall says, how is the beer stein doing? Very well, thank you very much for sending that. Very much appreciate that. AJ Duenes, thank you for your super chat. Very nice of you. Sailor Digurin wants to see Francesca's cat. Also, I finally joined now that there's a Francesca emote. Well, thank you. We will hopefully see a cat. We never know.
Hell yeah.
Cats make appearances, okay? You don't tell a cat what to do. Cat tells you what to do. But we'll see, we'll see. And then finally, one more comment from Little Red Dragon Amelia says, hey John, my sister and I are watching WandaVision, but haven't watched the Marvel movies. Where should we start? I feel like you probably would wanna watch some of the movies before watching the show. I don't think that you have to, but you'd probably appreciate it more if you did. I mean, if you wanna see, starting with her, I believe that's the second Avengers movie, Ultron, I think.
Is her
so
me?
Maybe watching that. What's that?
Is her me? Who's her?
No, her is Wanda from the MCU.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. You're only a her in a specific coffee related context.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Sorry, I'm never gonna get past that. Anyway, okay, so over on Twitch, by the way, Miranda Writes Left, subscribe for the 8th month. Thank you very much for that. Let's see, I saw that there were some gifts. I'm not seeing it listed in the log, but if I don't, you know who you are, and thank you. I did see it at the time. Summertime 87, subscribe for the 2nd month. Thank you for that, as well as the Very High King says, love the show, guys. Thank you very much, Very High King. Francis the Rogue, subscribe for the 9th month. Jeez, thank you. Aaron Rye for 7 months. Thank you very much for that. And Ryer for the 4th month and says, thank you TYT for keeping me sane during these hard times. All of you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for sticking with us during these very hard times. Now that said, let's move on to other news. Remember just like a couple of weeks ago when Tucker Carlson thought it was hilarious that Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was worried about being killed during the murderous Capitol riot? Yeah, well, now we're finding out that a 34-year-old Texas man has been arrested for taking part in the storming of the Capitol and posting violent threats, including a call to assassinate Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So I don't think that this is necessary to have made a congresswoman's concerns about being assassinated by violent radicals a serious thing, but knowing that there is a person who had felt totally comfortable posting that he wants to see her killed was storming through the halls of Congress. What do we think would have happened if that person had come across the representative? Tucker Carlson wants you to believe they would have just had a laugh or nothing at all. I kind of doubt it. Anyway, a little bit more information about this individual. His charges include knowingly entering and remaining in restricted buildings without lawful authority, violent entry and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds, obstructing and impeding an official proceeding, and performing acts of civil disorder. Miller is one of at least 119 people facing federal charges in connection to crimes committed during the Capitol riots. But you should also know that out there in the relatively new breaking news area is the idea that the Capitol Police might not actually press charges for people who are not directly able to be linked to acts of violence. So just the breaking of the property, the storming of the building, the roaming through the halls, hoping that you can assassinate these people. That might not be enough, Francesca, which notably is not how they've treated protesters in other situations in the Capitol.
I can't. I just one more week in America. Oh my God, here we are. But yeah, just if this were any other group than a group of mostly white Republicans who want to overthrow the government, it would all be criminal trespassing. The amount of arrests, I don't know how many times do I have to say this, like the speed at which people would have been tear gassed and rubber bulleted down, the amount of state violence that would have rained down on anyone that we've seen raining down on people who've protested for the ACA and protecting Medicaid have been treated with more violence than folks just roaming around with Nancy Pelosi's files. Like insanity. And once again, A lot of people have said this. Barbara Smith, who's a wonderful writer and academic and activist, Black feminist, she said, look, white supremacy has finally come for Congress, and they can't sit on the sidelines anymore. It's been coming for activists. It's been coming for Black and brown people, for Latinos, for Muslims, for immigrants, like this. And now it's here in Congress. So let's understand what we're dealing with. But I just want to say, like, we've all had a wake up call, but the one thing that I think we should know is that, like, Republicans, like, and the whole, I want to drink liberal tears and just make them cry. Like, there's actual violence behind that. That it isn't just about making Democrats cry and hurting the squad. It isn't just about cajoling them. It isn't just about supposedly holding them accountable, as some from the left would say. No, this is about actually trying to target them. And I think we have to understand that it would have been so much worse, and we've talked about that, if they had run into AOC or Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib or Ayanna Pressley or any of the other happen to be women of color who are part of the squad.
Yeah, and their constant fears of being killed. This is like a particularly intense moment, but I'm sure Ilhan Omar has thought many times over the past couple of years that she could end up being killed because of what she's doing. Thank you to all of them. Great, their political positions, their political advocacy, very valuable. Their bravery in the face of this constant demonization, this constant unfair, misogynistic, racist demonization of everything they do and say is another thing that they've had to deal with. So, very brave of them to continue at all, and I hope that it doesn't get so bad that we lose them. I don't even mean the violent way, although that's obviously a concern, but AOC has talked about not being sure that politics is actually her future. And I'm sure that this is a big part of that. She might not run for election at some point because of how grotesque and extreme this entire environment is.
Yes.
Anyway, really fast, I just wanted to show you the evidence. So he was one of these that was very easy to track down because he just posted about how excited he was that he'd broken the law and gotten in there. He responded to AOC on January 6th with assassinate AOC. So he also threatened a US Capitol Police officer, saying he planned to hug his neck with a nice rope. And so that's the sort of person that was roaming around there, a guy who's perfectly happy killing this female politician, killing a Capitol Police officer. Those violent extremists that went to the Capitol, they're still out there. They don't know exactly what their next move is, but they're retooling and looking for another way that they can terrorize America. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, yesterday on the Bitchuation Room, my podcast, we had someone on from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and we were talking essentially about, look, this person posted on Instagram, right, that they like the desire to hug someone's neck, a Capitol Police officer's neck with a nice rope. Like that was Instagram, owned by Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, 2.9 billion users on that platform. Dude is a billionaire himself, can't figure out his bangs. You've heard of him. He talks like this. And there is no incentive. Yes, they've done a good thing by kicking some of these crazies off their platform. There's no incentive for them to actually keep them off. And so long as we have big tech, so long as they can continue to monopolize this industry, we're gonna have hate and false information amplified and amplified and amplified even more. And so it is super important that we remember that like, for example, this was a great example that she was telling me. She was like, look, if there's a copyright infringement on this show right now, you start playing Macho Man, right? This video will get taken down in 2 seconds. But if we start inciting violence against AOC or anybody else and start calling for assassination, that'll stay up. That's fine.
Yep.
Because they're not afraid of AOC suing them. They're afraid of, like RCA or MGM or whomever, like a record company suing them because they've got actual money. AOC is one person. So let's just remember that this is all part and parcel of the fact that we need to take down big tech. They have no moral center whatsoever other than making money.
Yeah, I'm not as convinced by this argument because you're talking about some sort of antitrust effort against big tech to protect regular people and not just to let like white males like me monetize our platform. So I'm not as interested. That's really what I'm in this for.
Yeah.
But anyway,
free speech.
A good point. That's what free speech is. So anyway, let's reset for another angle on this. We're just a few weeks out from the January 6th incident, and from that night, there have been attempts to rewrite what it was. Ignore the people who died, ignore the cop who was beaten to death by these MAGA people, these Q people, the Boogaloo Boys and all that. Ignore that. It wasn't that big of a deal. Mock anyone who takes it seriously. Well, we have gotten a lot of updates since then about how much worse it could have been than 5 people dying. And so let's give you a little bit of information about that. Some weapons that were found by people who attended that: a crossbow, assault rifles, knives, tasers, baseball bats, bear spray, a cooler full of Molotov cocktails, ingredients, and IEDs were among the weapons that were brought by Trump supporters. Capitol Police also reported that the insurrectionists used their own pepper spray and mace against them during the riot. You might recall a video we played, I believe last week, of them chanting as they assaulted a cop to shoot him with his own gun. But some just decided to bring their own guns, in fairness. You had the devices, Molotov cocktails tucked into mason jars, mixed gasoline with styrofoam. The mixture, a common home recipe in extremist texts like the Anarchist Cookbook, makes an improvised incendiary substance similar to napalm that can stick to skin and surfaces while burning for extended periods of time. So some of this we'd known about. I didn't know about the crossbow previously, but you had a lot of people that came armed, not just to see the fancy artwork, not just to represent their constituents, as Josh Hawley would say. They came with an assault rifle because they had an inkling that they might need to use an assault rifle or a crossbow or knives or baseball bats or Molotov cocktails or IEDs. So yeah, it was serious.
Looks like the FA is much more dangerous than the anti-FA.
Yes.
In all of this.
These could be.
But once again, it's who is wielding them. I believe there was some sort of open carry rally. I can't remember where it was. There was like an open carry rally in Virginia recently, and like hardly anyone showed up because of COVID. And DC, by the way, doesn't have an open carry policy. And the only people who were arrested at this open carry rally were the 4 black men who were going in attendance. Of course, the double standard is incredible. This is Alton Sterling, who was killed in his car by police trying to reach for his license that he had to carry his weapon. This is not about free speech. This is not about the unheard masses. This is not about fake news. This is not even really about platforms and tech. This is about white supremacy. That's all it's been about. This is about keeping or making America white again. That's it. And it's such a condemnation of our law enforcement. It is such a condemnation of the justice system in this country. So I am with Representative Jamal Bowman and Representative Cori Bush and others who are really trying to root out not just the insurrectionists who were in the streets and performing, who were doing this, but also the people in Congress who were egging it on, who were completely in it for this kind of violence. Of course, they knew where it would end.
And let's remember, just to buttress her point about the fundamental fact that white supremacy is at the core of this, as it is so much of what the right wing gets up to, is what was their argument against the election? It was that no, the people of Detroit, their votes don't count, and the people of Philly, their votes don't count, and the people of Atlanta, their votes don't count. Off in the rural areas, the white voters, those can count, but black people living in cities, their votes don't get to count. And if you try to count them, we will come and we will kill your politicians, your black and brown politicians. We will target them for assassination. That is what this is about. Do they want power? Sure, but they want to uphold a white supremacist system. That's what they want. That's what they were trying to do with the legal argument, as ridiculous as it was, and when they actually attacked the Capitol.
And they lost even in a system that already upholds a white supremacy, a system that was already established to protect slaveholding states. Like how can you lose in this system that's already designed for you to constantly win, like the Electoral College is, and you still lose? It seems like, so then you have to resort to violence. But I think you're just going the way of the dinosaur. Like, bye, let's just shed this. Just We're shedding our exoskeleton, John. We're moving on. We're shedding the white hood. But I think this is what's so sad about this moment is like, this is why we can't have anything nice. I feel like once again, we live in the future and we live in the past right now. It's like we're living in 1860 while we're also trying to get a Green New Deal to live in the 21st,
Yeah.
And yeah, this is the special little moment we are in American history.
It's a great time. It's a great time. And they can't even release Black Widow or the new Bond movie. Anyway, I'm gonna read just a couple quick super chats before we move on to other news. We've got a couple of clowns for you. Let's see, Mr. Anderson sent in a super chat saying, Francesca's wail of aggravation is what we all feel. The double standards for the treatment of protesters on both sides is completely disturbing. Totally. That wail is what my heart is right now. Let's see, Pemberley says, Wanda first seen in end credits of Winter Soldier. Not the most important, but some Easter egg level connections. Also, I love you both. Thank you, I'd actually forgotten about that. But I think watching Age of Ultron, if you want to get to know the characters a little bit for the movie, is perfectly good. And then maybe like Infinity War and Endgame and stuff like that. Bernie the Kiwi Bird says, Fran and John, my favorite duo on TDR. I hope you both had a great weekend. I really hope we can get over the Trump aftermath sooner. I don't even live in the US and I'm already exhausted by it. I mean, there's a lot of potential futures branching off from where we're at right now. But I see there's a lot of people that they want power and they want money and they are trying to figure out how to create that future. And it could potentially be a really dark time going forward. Okay, let's see. Lestad says, happy Monday, John and Francesca from Oslo and Francesca's patron number 100.
Yay, woo. I was wondering who it was gonna be. I'm glad it's from Oslo.
That's awesome. Oslo, good place, good people. Let's see, Dragon Squad First Class says, my son Evan 9 is now known as Dragon Squad First Class 2. It runs in the family apparently. It's good to see. Let's see, Mistif says, and it goes to courts too. People of color get much harsher sentences for the same crimes than whites. So Republicans flooding the courts is their way of keeping the landscape changed. Yes, and also trying to stop people who've served their sentence from being able to vote. Like, it all is designed to perpetuate the same thing. There are many elements of it which we need to fight against. Some of them at the federal level, some at the state level. Okay, let's see. One final super chat. Damon says, from pre-show, black and trans rights are related because black folks are trans and trans folks are black. It's called intersectionality and we cannot afford to be divided. Black trans lives are the most at risk. Agreed. And then let's see, over on the Twitchy, let's see, Frank Morningtree gifted 5 tier 1 subs. Thank you so much for that. Chloe Gamboa, subscribed for the 6 months, says, it's been a strong 6 months of sending Bezos money your way, go TYT. Thank you, we like to take that from him. Okay. Kin of Wolf says, Fran, I watched your hot tub performance, it was great. I laughed so hard I peed myself, thank goodness for Depends. What's the hot tub performance? Not familiar with that one.
That's my stand-up set. It wasn't in a hot tub. It's a great show in LA called Hot Tub. Yeah, that's on.
Okay. Is it posted online?
Yeah. At Franny Fio, you can watch it. 'Twas a good night.
Watch it.
Yeah, it was
like fun.
It was a good night. Now I've got to write new material. Damn
it. Okay. Well, we're still gonna be locked down for a while. Oh wait, no, we're not, because we live in California and Gavin Newsom's decided it's all cool. We can reopen again. I guess it's a little bit more complicated than that, but we're going back to this like tier system rather than a blanket lockdown. What? It's still all red. It's terrible here. It's such a weird move for Gavin Newsom to be making.
We're not talking about this, but I just say it's the wrong move. Bad. Call him if you're in California. This is awful. What the hell are we doing? Oh my God.
Trying to just clear out another percentage point of people who live in California before this thing is done, I guess. Anyway, let's move to lighter news. I don't know, we've got to figure out a word for these sorts of stories. They're not about lots of people dying, but they're not good either. So it's the damage war basically, and we're gonna continue with it. Okay. Tom Cotton is out there being a Republican, and being a Republican, he decided, you know what? My record, which has some things I could brag about in it, isn't good enough for me. So I'm just gonna make up a bunch of stuff and steal a bit of valor. That'll be fun. So let's talk about this. So some good reporting. It's all over the place. We're getting this from Salon, but they say that in his first run for Congress, Tom Cotton leaned heavily on his military service, which he did serve in the military. He claimed to have been a US Army Ranger in Iraq and Afghanistan, and in a campaign ad to have volunteered to be an Army Ranger, which isn't the same thing as the first one, but we're gonna break down both of those. In reality, Cotton was never part of the 75th Ranger Regiment, the elite unit that plans and conducts joint special military operations as part of the US Army Special Operations Command. So there are the special forces in each branch of the service. This is one of the elite ones for the Army there. But you have to actually be in it to really be able to plausibly claim that you were in it. That's sort of one of the requirements. Now, he has a little bit of fuzziness to this. So how is he trying to sell this thing? He attended the Ranger School, a 2-month-long small unit tactical infantry course that literally anyone in the military is eligible to attend. Soldiers who complete the course earn the right to wear the Ranger tab, a small arch that reads Ranger. By the eyes of the military, that does not make them an actual Army Ranger. Also, they're literally not a part of the Army Rangers, which is the 75th Ranger Regiment. Now, this is complicated, I know, which is probably why GoArmy.com has this that you can read on their site. What's the difference between those two things? I guess Tom Cotton didn't go to GoArmy.com and read that because he still seems a little bit confused about what his actual service record was. So we're gonna have a little bit more on this, but Francesca, we're coming off of, what was it, Madison Cawthorn apparently lying a bunch about his record during his campaign. Now Tom Cotton, senator, just making up being part of special forces.
Well, look, when I was 7, I did become a sheriff because I was eating a box of Cheerios and there was a sheriff's badge at the bottom of it. And so I can say from my experience, patrolling these streets out here in my sheriff duties that, once a ranger, always a ranger. And tomato, tomato,
true.
Cheerios box, or 8 years of elite military service. Who's to say?
Who's to say?
I put it on my resume. Look, I think Tom Cotton very much got caught out with the, looks like someone doesn't know Microsoft Excel.
I guess.
Gee.
Yeah, now, fact checkers in the audience, yes, I know that, look, Francesca didn't go to police academy, but she did serve for 2 months in the Honey Nut division. And so she deserves the badge that is her birthright. So look, there's a little bit more. In February 2012, he said, my experience as a US Army Ranger in Iraq and Afghanistan and my experience in business will put me in very good condition. He said that knowing he wasn't an Army Ranger. And look, like if I were to claim to have served, that would be bad enough. I was never in the military. He was in the military, so he knows and should take to heart how stealing valor is a really bad thing that you don't do.
Yeah.
And then to make that, like, look at this ad. Volunteered to be an Army Ranger. Well, that doesn't mean anything. Plenty of people in the military would like to be in the special forces. It's difficult. That's what makes it so impressive. I volunteered to go to Harvard. They didn't want me. I wasn't qualified, so I can't put it in my ads. There's plenty of stuff I wished I'd done that I didn't, Tom Cotton. So look, you have my sympathy in that regards. But unfortunately, you're a massive goddamn liar. So it ends pretty much there.
Yeah,
he's just lying to seem cooler. And I don't know why, like, I guess it took this long. I'm glad that journalists were able to find it, but this needs to be made a big deal. Like, they sunk John Kerry's presidential ambitions because I honestly don't even remember what the issue they had with his service was, but it was something about him not being that good, even though he was actually injured in the field. This guy is lying about being special forces. He wants to be president in a couple of years.
Absolutely, they should definitely ask him all about that. Your Ranger school. So how many knots did you learn to tie in Ranger school, Tom? Yeah, was it hard? Did you get a little badge? You got your little pin? Cool. Yeah, no, there is a big difference. I don't really know much about rank, but clearly it's important. And if I were an Army Ranger, I would be incredibly incensed. But that's the other thing about the military is like you try to not turn on your own. You can turn on Tom. I feel like it's safe to turn on Tom Cotton. My guess is if he ever gets anywhere near the presidency, he will start a war. He's already been trying to send the United States to war in Iran. Yep. So my guess is he doesn't really care about lives, even though he himself is a vet. He wants to rush right into another senseless, needless, and maybe illegal war. So no, do not give him this win. Let's have him clarify.
It feels like a thing that America's had for a long time. It's people who enter the military so that they can parlay it into a career. Their willingness to lie about it makes that seem like that's probably an explanation. By the way, it ain't just on the Republican side. There are Democrats who do that too, and some of them even run for president. But anyway, no, we get to point out what you were and what you weren't. Now, Tom Cotton is going to need to between now and when he runs for office, because look, it's one thing for a damn lib like me to point out that you're a massive liar. I imagine the Republicans running against him are gonna make a big deal out of this. Now, they've got years to figure out their explanation. The first draft isn't great, so reached for comment. Cotton's spokesperson, Caroline Tabler, told Salon in an email, Senator Cotton graduated from Ranger School and is more of a Ranger than a Salon reporter like you will ever be. Okay, sure. That's not the concern though. I don't think that this reporter at Salon is claiming to be a Ranger, so.
Oh yeah, way to hold your cards there. Yay, communications director. Way to totally not project guilt at all. Just, standing strong and real fragile. I love how Republicans just reveal themselves like this. It's so good. And like yet somehow we have to keep on pointing out that when you behave like that, when you issue a statement like that, chances are you're probably pretty guilty of stolen valor. Like you're exactly guilty of this.
Yeah, everyone, this was a Salon reporter, but I think it's time that we sicked Ken Klippenstein on this situation. So let's see if he can talk to some of the people who served with Tom Cotton, maybe get some quotes about, was he talking about a future political career? Did he pretend to be a Ranger while he was in the service? I think we can find this stuff. Let's get some sources to contact old Kenny Clips.
I love that.
Now that said, let's roll through to one quick last story. There's competition for mayor of Clowntown, apparently, and Marissa, I love that. I hope you're watching. Anyway, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, fresh off her gig lying professionally, wants to serve as governor. She's apparently gonna be running for governor of Arkansas. She calls the position the last line of defense against the radical left in Washington. Let's stop there for a second. Look, there's no radical left in Washington, and I will say that if there was a last line of defense against it, it wouldn't be governor of Arkansas. What role does the governor of Arkansas have on the crazy commie socialists over in DC? I don't think
you don't know. You don't know, John. There's special. Oh, there's badges. There's paperwork.
I just imagine someday like AOC is about to sign, President Ocasio-Cortez is about to sign the thing that's gonna ban cows. And they're like, wait, we haven't gotten it checked by the governor of Arkansas yet. That's not.
Have you run this by the governor of Arkansas? Quick.
Oh my God. Anyway, so look, her father was governor from 1996 to 2007. And she became press secretary for Donald Trump after Sean Spicer resigned in 2017. So I wanna give you an idea of what her candidacy is going to be like, as if you don't already know. She said this: with the radical left now in control of Washington, your governor is your last line of defense. As governor, I will defend your right to be free of socialism and tyranny, your Second Amendment right to keep your family safe, and your freedom of speech and religious liberty. Our state needs a leader with the courage to do what's right, not what's politically correct or convenient or based in truth or reality. So now, she is gonna be running, and people have been expecting this for a few weeks. So what is her record? Well, she lied for Trump for a couple of years, and Republicans loved it because she lied and she would spit in the face of the media, so there's that. She worked on some political campaigns because of her father. She started a consultancy campaign that worked on campaigns, and that's it. And governor of an entire state. I don't know exactly what the role of governor of Arkansas is. I imagine it's a lot of stuff that's pretty important to the state. Now, she portrays her experience as, I've been tested under fire, successfully managing one crisis after another in one of the most difficult high pressure jobs in all of government. At the table with President Trump, confronting our most dangerous adversaries like China and North Korea. No, you didn't. Being tested on fire, sure. Your job was to lie for a guy who did and said crazy things. Defending that is legitimately a difficult job. I would not have lasted 5 minutes doing it. So she gets credit for that. That isn't actually managing crises. That's kind of distracting from public relations crises that your president own gold himself on. But anyway, Francesca, what do you think? Does any of this matter? Like the fact that her job was basically just lying for the president, and that's the record that she's gonna try to parlay into governor?
Yes, it absolutely matters. It matters that people are willing to elect leaders who are more focused on burying any problems they have under the most amount of sand, including their own heads. So whatever the voters of Arkansas have to deal with, whether it's climate change or income inequality or the housing crisis, I will make sure to distract you with something else. Like that is really, and that is what voters, if you are, at this point, Republican voters are going for that. They want the leader to, the leader that will most lie to them about reality, that will most deflect onto the backs of Black people and immigrants, and the so-called radical left. That's what they're signing up for. That's what fascism is, really. That is what it is. It's saying, I want to buy into an unreality that is the most authoritarian and the most violent possible, and that's it. I just want to buy into a set of beliefs. I don't want to actually buy into the world we currently live in, and that's very scary. It's also interesting that just over in Georgia, naming the radical left and socialism over and over again didn't win, and
that's true.
Yeah, and so and that is thanks to grassroots organizers who made sure that those real issues were at the forefront of the campaigns of Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. And in Arkansas and in states all over this country, that's what it's going to have to be. It's going to have to be fighting against this BS rhetoric with real issues and like actually listening to people. But yeah, there's nothing, she's got no experience whatsoever. And it speaks to a broader point, right? Which I like your take on, which is, what do we do with all of these Trump grifters that spawned off of this putrid administration, just like, mushrooms on moldy socks? Like what do we do with these new fungi that are still around? This black mold on our nation. I'm just gonna keep going with it.
Yeah, okay, until I vomit.
Yeah, until you puke, and then I will have won. No, but we want to ban them forever, right? This is the idea with actually, making good on that 14th Amendment when it comes to current, lawmakers who incited insurrection and helped with that, right? Like there's an amendment where it says you gone, you bye now. So what happens when you helped this insurrectionary violent president maintain his, house of cards or lies or whatever the hell? Like, it's like, what is our recourse? And I think there's been a lot of ideas floated about how we can lobby around, making sure these people only can dance with the stars, and maybe not even that, but definitely not hold office again.
Yeah, I think that she's gonna run, and I think, look, as much as I'm mocking the ridiculous record, and even like my one quality is that I told lies that you wanted. I was the front man for that. Like she didn't do that for like 3 months or longer before she eventually left the job. Like she ended the one thing that her job was, the press briefings. But anyway, that doesn't mean that she's not gonna win, because everything that Francesca said about what they want, what they're all signing up for, they are signing up for that. And we can fight back, but Arkansas also isn't Georgia, so it's gonna be an even bigger fight. And in terms of how she's gonna try to, like, the distraction and all of that Francesca was talking about, you saw the announcement quotes. It's radical socialism tyranny thing somewhere else. Not actually anything having to do with Arkansas's issues, because a cursory search shows that it's 43rd for economic activity, 32nd for economic health, 50th for innovation potential, has one of the worst state economies in the US. You'll note that she's not really talking about fixing that because she is a Republican, so she doesn't care about fixing any problems. She's gonna tell you that they're coming to put trans people in your bathrooms and they're gonna shut down your Second Amendment Bible rights. That's what she's going to say, and there's a very real chance that it will win. So maybe the joke will be on us. Unfortunately, it's also probably gonna be on Arkansas. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I'll say is we obviously need better. I hate this line. I've always hated this line, but it's the first time I've actually felt it. We need better Republicans too. We need an actual Republican to run, like a McCain, who was principled in some ways. But I mean, we need Democrats to run, but I also think we need better Republicans to run because you're absolutely right. There are people who just will not vote for a Democrat no matter what, you know? And one thing I'm hoping is that Trump makes good on his third party threats and starts the Patriot Party, and then we win.
Yes, because that is unfortunately how it works. Until you change the way voting is done, that's the effect it would have. And I'd argue that's the effect that he wants it to have. But anyway, Francesca, as always, thank you so much for joining us. We're actually gonna be sticking around a little bit after the end of the show to film our weekly top 10 list that is available to some of our YouTube members. We're gonna be doing, this is a viewer request. It is the top 10 things we learned or discovered or experienced during the pandemic. A little bit more of a positive sort of growth focused aspect of it. So we're gonna learn a little bit about how our last year went from each other. For all of you watching, thank you so much for that. We got a big week planned, lots of guests. So you can definitely expect more of that. Francesca, where can people see you?
Oh, you're so sweet.
Where is her? Where can her be found?
Her is at Franny Fio on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And my podcast, The Bitchuation Room, streams live every Sunday, 6/9 Eastern. And you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you so much in advance, Dragon Squad.
Awesome. And for all of you, thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon. Great work, people.